the Eagle Bearer might be making a comeback for one of the highest DPS assault rifles into the Division 2 on Year 5 Season 3. Hey, what's up everybody, welcome back to one more Tom Clancy Division 2 video. So today we are on the PTS for Year 5 Season 3. We have a couple changes to the entire game, to be honest with you, but on today's video I do want to focus on the assault rifles changes and discuss what I think about these changes and show you guys the difference between on the live game and also on the PTS. And with that said, the PTS is something that might change before the devs release the actual update to the live game, so keep that in mind. Take this with a grain of salt. This might happen to the live game, this might not, things might change because this is only the phase 1 and we still have another phase to go to see if this will go through or not. Okay, let's start with the famous Eagle Bearer. I know this is one of the fan favorite weapons in the game, and it was one of the best and one of the first exotic ARs introduced in the game. I believe this actually was the first. So what happened to the Eagle Bearer? The only thing that happened to the Eagle Bearer was a RPM buff. Yep, RPM buff. That RPM buff, that was enough to put it right there on top, because people like to say, oh, my weapon hits hard, but they don't take into consideration RPM of a weapon. A DPS calculation comes with the damage of a weapon and also the RPM of that weapon. The P416, both of the versions, and also the name version, the Glory Days, all of them got a plus 50 rounds per minute added to them, so another 50 RPM. The next weapon that got a buff, and honestly was really needed because this weapon was in the bottom of the barrel, one of the worst ARs when it comes to DPS. I know some people used to say this was better than FAMAS. I don't know what they were smoking, but anyways, now they actually can say it is a very good weapon. It's still not better than the FAMAS, but it is a better weapon with the buff that it got. The ACR, both versions, got a 10% weapon damage increase. The CTOR21 got a buff to the mag size. Used to be up to 50 after you put a mod on it. Now it can get up to 60, so it got a plus 10 rounds of a buff for the next update. The name version of this weapon was used a lot in the past, and now with this buff to the mag size, it's still not quite on the DPS side higher, but on the sustained DPS it got a little bit of a buff. All of the G36 variants and also the name variants got a huge buff. This weapon went from almost the bottom of the barrel all the way to almost the top of the weapon list when it comes to the burst DPS. This one also got a very good buff and it's on the RPM side, so it went up from 750 RPM to 800 RPM. The Honey Badger got a slight buff. This one, honestly, it was not enough to make it go up in the list. As a fact, the Honey Badger went down on the list, but not because of the buff itself, is because of the other weapons that got a better buff when it comes to the burst DPS. So the Honey Badger only got a 5 rounds increase on the magazine. The MK16s were one of the weapons that I used a lot in the past because I like the feel of this weapon, even though it was not that strong. It hits hard though, but it didn't have the highest burst DPS. So with that said, they give it a 10% weapon damage increase to all of the MK16's variants. Now let's talk about the F2000, because this weapon actually got probably the best buff. It got 2 buffs, and honestly it was very good weapon. It was up there following the FAMAS before, and now it just surpassed the FAMAS because of the buff to the RPM and also to the magazine size. So it got a 50 RPM increase and also a 10 round increase on the magazine. And even better actually is for the name version of this weapon, which is the Shield Splinter. I did make a video about this weapon. It's a very good weapon, has a perfect talent, which is the perfect optimist. Now the regular optimist does give you about 13% total damage to your magazine, right? Because this increases as you shoot. But the perfect optimist gives you about 16% increase to your magazine damage. Now last but not least we have the Fall. Now this weapon has one of my favorite skins in the game, but besides that, so the Fall did get a buff, a slight buff, which still increased on the burst DPS list, but I prefer if they had given it a different buff. So the buff that they gave it was only 5% weapon damage increase, but honestly I would say if they could give it a max size increase, that would be better. But yeah, it still has up to 40 rounds on the magazine, and the damage got a 5% damage increase. So with that said, now this is the list of currently ARs that we have in the game. Named ARs, exotics, and regular with different variants, right? So these are all of the ARs, and if we go right here and sort these by the burst DPS, right, from highest to lowest, you can see, yep, the Eagle Bearer is right there on top now, because before it was not. Now keep in mind this list is a base DPS calculation, which means we're not taking in consideration the weapon talents and also the weapon mods. For example, we know that the Chameleon, it is one of the best ARs in the game when it comes to damage, but that's after you apply that weapon talent. We know that also the Kingbreaker is one of the best DPS weapons in the game, but that's after we apply that talent, the perfect flatline. Now funny enough, if we take a look also at the sustained DPS, we're gonna sort this out from highest to lowest. You can see also the Eagle Bearer is right there on top, because it has one of the best sustained DPS. And also one thing for sure, we see the St. Elmo's engine came back on top on the second place. It's because of that mag size and the reload speed, right? So St. Elmo's engine reloads really fast compared to many of the ARs and has one of the highest mag size. That's gonna give it a good sustained DPS. So for all the people that think the St. Elmo's engine is not good anymore, that's not the case. It's just the Eagle Bearer now is very good. The St. Elmo's engine is still gonna be one of the best weapons in the game for sustained DPS, but it's just on the burst DPS side of things, we have new weapons that's gonna take that crown. Even though the St. Elmo's engine was not exactly the best burst DPS before, it just was a good weapon. Okay, now let's go over the weapon talents changes for the assault rifles. Remember, I'm keeping this video only assault rifles, but there is other weapon talents that was changed for other weapon types that I will mention in another video. So let's go over that. So starting off with the Carbine 7. Now as you guys know, the Carbine 7 has a predefined talent that always comes with it anytime that you loot this weapon for the first time or you buy it or something, right? It has that predefined talent, right? Now with the new update, you should not have that. It's gonna be a random talent. That way it's gonna be easier with the RNG. That way you might get what you want right from the bat. The next weapon on the list is this one. Actually, I think is a buff to this weapon, the Bighorn. Honestly, it's still gonna be a Bighorn. It's not gonna be used much, but it's definitely better. So what happened is the talent Big Game Hunter will be changed. So instead of 2 headshot damage, you will get 4 headshot damage, and it will stack up to 25 times instead of 50 times. So basically, long story short, you will get that buff a lot faster, but the same amount of damage that we get before this patch. So again, I feel like this is a buff. It's a very good one. It's just the fact that the Bighorn itself, it still needs like a buff to the handling of this weapon. This weapon is tough. The next talent change will be for the St. Elmo's engine, the famous one, right? This one, the change will be for PvP only. And basically what it is instead of getting 100% of your magazine with shock ammo, once you get that shock ammo for PvP only, you only get 50% of your magazine with shock ammo. On PvE, once you get that shock ammo, will be 70 bullets of shock ammo. But on PvP, once you get that shock ammo, it will be only 35 bullets of shock ammo. The mechanical animal named AR did get a change for the perfect talent, the future perfection, right? So weapon kills grants
+1 skill tier for 19 seconds. And also on top of that, it will stack up to 4 times instead of 3 times that we had before. Last but not least, the flatline talents, the perfect version and the normal version did get a nerf, even though I don't feel like this will affect players because that's not how players use it anyway. So for the perfect version, after 3 kills, it will apply the pulse to the next enemy you hit. Before, it was after 2 kills, so that's the difference. And then on the regular version, instead of 3 kills, is after 4 kills to apply that pulse. But what I'm saying is, even though that's a nerf, a lot of people use the flatline with a weapon that has the linked laser pointer, and and just have flatline basically 100% of the time. And that's it, guys. That's all I have for you guys for today. This was basically all of the AR changes that's coming for the next update. So far, this is the phase 1 of PTS. Again, take this with a grain of salt. Things might not go this way. On phase 2, they might change things around, those numbers, those buffs, those nerfs, all of that, because this is a PTS, right? So anyways, give your feedback to the devs. Let me know what you guys think of these changes in the comment section below, and I'll catch you guys on the next video. Peace out, everybody.